I'd never believed in ghosts, not until I stepped into that cemetery. I was there to photograph the forgotten stones for a local history project. The place had been abandoned for years, overgrown and crumbling, but something about it felt aware. As the sun dipped below the treetops, a chill swept through me that had nothing to do with the wind. I knelt beside one of the older headstones, brushing away the moss to read the name. But the letters were worn beyond recognition, and the more I stared, the more it seemed like something was etched beneath the original carvings. I traced the lines with my finger and jerked back. It felt warm, like skin. Near a broken marker, I found what looked like a child's grave. A small hand-carved cross had toppled over, and next to it was a decayed doll, its eyes gouged out. I was about to take a photo when the wind died. The trees stilled. Then I heard it. A child's giggle, dry and cracked inches from my ear. I spun around, heart hammering, but saw no one. Still, I backed away from the grave, my lantern trembling in my hand. That laugh couldn't have been a bird. It was too human. And then I saw it, just beyond the tree line, a small shape watching me. It had no face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should have been. I should have run. I meant to run, but something pulled me toward the crypt at the far edge of the cemetery. I didn't even realize I was descending the stairs until the ground shifted beneath me. The air turned foul, damp with rot. My lantern flickered. That was when I heard the first whisper. Not behind me, but from beneath the stone floor. The crypt wasn't empty. Dust choked the air, but something had disturbed the coffins. Many were splintered open, bones strewn across the floor. I moved slowly, careful not to breathe too deep when I felt it. A faint tug on the back of my coat. I turned, expecting to see a cobweb. Instead, a skeletal hand lay curled near my boot, freshly disturbed. At the center of the room stood a coffin, unlike the rest. Larger, older, sealed tight with iron bands and marked with symbols I'd never seen. My lantern flickered violently as I stepped closer. The markings, they pulsed like they were alive, like they knew I was there. I should have left, but I couldn't stop myself from touching the lid. The moment my fingers touched the wood, the coffin exploded outward with a deafening crack. A thick black mist poured out, crawling up the walls and across the floor, like it was searching for something. My lantern shattered as the tendrils slithered past me. One brushed my arm. It burned. I stumbled back, my shoulder searing where it had touched me. The mist began to form, a shape humanoid, impossibly tall and hunched, with eyes like burning pits and no mouth. It didn't move like a person. It twitched, convulsed, then lunged toward me. I ran. God, I ran. I scrambled up the stairs, tearing through the roots that seemed to have grown overnight. I collapsed onto the grass, gulping in air. Behind me, the crypt glowed faintly red. The mist hadn't followed, not completely, but thin streams of it trickled out behind me, snaking along the ground. Something had been unleashed, and it wasn't done with me yet. I thought I was alone, until I saw him. An old man stood at the cemetery gate, unmoving, watching me. His lantern didn't flicker. I don't know how long he'd been standing there, but the way he stared made my skin crawl. When I asked who he was, he only said one thing. "You opened it, didn't you?" He refused to step beyond the iron gate, said he'd been the gravekeeper once, long before anyone remembered the place. He spoke in riddles, told me the crypt was sealed for a reason. "What you saw wasn't a ghost," he whispered. "It was sealed in that tomb by blood. Now that blood will call again." He told me the truth in pieces. Over a century ago, the town had sacrificed someone, something in that grave. The entity couldn't be killed, only bound beneath the runes. Its rage had turned the cemetery foul, cursed. They silenced it with blood magic, but the cost was generations of silence and death. And now I'd undone it. The mark on my arm had worsened. It was spreading. veins blackened, skin cracked and fever hot. The gravekeeper looked at it and paled. "You've been marked. It knows you. It wants you." I staggered back, trying to think clearly, but I felt something crawling beneath my skin, something alive. The earth shook. I heard groaning beneath my feet. Then a crack. One of the graves split open, then another. Rotting hands clawed toward the surface. The gravekeeper screamed something I couldn't understand, but it was too late. Whatever I'd released, it was calling the dead to rise. They came from every direction, decayed, broken things dragging themselves from the soil. Some had twisted limbs, others were nothing more than bones. Yet all of them turned their eyeless faces toward me. They didn't moan, they didn't speak. They waited. The gravekeeper had already vanished. I was alone in the center of the storm. Then it rose. The mist poured upward, forming the same shape I'd seen in the crypt, but larger, stronger. Its limbs were too long, its skin shifting like oil, and those red sockets glowed like furnace coals. The dead bent toward it in reverence. My legs refused to move. It had found me again. I ran, the kind of run that tears your lungs apart. Gravestones shattered around me as bony hands reached for my legs. The entity glided behind them, faster than something that size should be. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew that if I stopped, even for a second, I'd never leave that place alive. I dove into an old mausoleum and slammed the gate behind me. The dead clawed at it but didn't enter. Candles flared to life on their own inside, revealing carvings, more of those symbols. They pulsed like before. My skin prickled. This was another sealed space, another prison. But who or what had they sealed in this one? The symbols began to glow brighter. Then a vision overtook me, right from the wall. A woman trapped inside the stone, her mouth moving as if screaming, eyes wide with terror. Her presence was strong, filled with pain. She hadn't been part of the evil. She'd been sacrificed to stop it. And now, she wanted out. I couldn't look away. Her face pressed through the stone like it was water, her hand reaching for mine. She didn't speak, but I heard her voice inside my head, pleading, warning. "You must seal it again. The blood must bind." I didn't understand what she meant until I looked down and saw the blade lying in the dust. It was old ceremonial, still stained with dark red. Next to it, a book lay open, its pages brittle but untouched by time. Symbols matched those on the crypt. I could barely read the Latin, but I understood one thing. Sealing it required a new offering, one willing to suffer, to bleed, to finish what had once begun. With shaking hands, I dragged the blade across my palm and pressed it to the symbol. The effect was instant. Light erupted from the wall as my blood dripped onto the carvings. The vision of the woman cried out, this time with joy, and the ground shook. Spirits, lost souls, the forgotten dead, spiraled upward from the mausoleum floor. Outside, the entity screamed, no voice, just raw force. The spirits from the mausoleum burst from the walls and swarmed it, glowing with a brilliance that tore through the mist. The creature flailed, unraveling like smoke in wind. The risen corpses fell mid-stride, collapsing like puppets cut from their strings. The graveyard trembled. By morning, the graves were quiet again. The mausoleum door stood closed behind me, sealed with fresh blood and old pain. I looked back one last time. The woman's face faded from the stone, not in torment, but at peace. I'd done it. I'd finished what they couldn't. But the mark on my arm still burned. It wasn't over. Not completely. I sat at the cemetery's edge as the sun crept up behind the trees. For the first time in hours, maybe years, the place felt still. No whispers, no footsteps behind me, just birdsong. I should have felt haunted, but instead I felt lifted, like the weight of all that pain and death had finally been released. I looked down at my hand, expecting the mark to still burn beneath the bandage, but when I unwrapped it, the skin was clean, smooth. A single faint symbol flickered once, glowing gold, then vanished into nothing. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time since stepping foot in that graveyard. The cemetery itself had changed. Where there had been rot and ruin, wild flowers now grew. Headstones stood straighter, cleaner. Even the air smelled different. It was no longer a prison. It was a resting place again. And the souls that had wandered, trapped in that terrible loop of rage and hunger, they were finally free. Before I left, I placed a single lily at the mausoleum steps. Not because anyone told me to, but because it felt right. As I stood, I saw her, the woman from the vision, standing just beyond the fog. She nodded once, then she turned and faded into the morning light. My heart felt full in a way it hadn't in years. I left that place with my soul intact, and something more. The dead didn't follow. The evil didn't whisper. The gate closed behind me with a soft clang, and I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Whatever I'd set free, whatever had been calling out in agony, it was silent now. And for the first time in a long time, so was the graveyard.